But there's another kind of joint enterprise, and it's called parasitic, accessorial liability. But that means someone else carries the intention more so than the perpetrator, but without having to prove it. You have to prove the perpetrator is the perpetrator and their intent, but you don't have to do that with a secondary party. It was about proving that he was at the scene when it happened, which was I felt that was a bit unusual because we knew he was there. That was the big push on it. He didn't know where he was because he had an eye condition, which meant that he was blind at the time. I know for a fact it was political because at the time there was about to be a general election and both the Labour and Conservatives tagged on to the case and we had this broken Britain rhetoric. But he's just recently done a case and he was on the case and there were 7 defendants, and because the legal teams kind of worked together, they didn't let any of the young people stand in and give evidence in the witness box. And the reason for that was, you haven't got any evidence. There's nothing for them to defend themselves against. I mean, I would argue, just use evidence. Dead simple.
I know.
Because if I murdered you, you couldn't put me in prison for your murder unless you found some evidence, whether it was blood on my hands or the murder weapon or CCTV footage. You couldn't do it. And it would be really, really difficult. But if you put another 2 people in the room with me, you don't need anything.
No.
Just it's all opinion and possibilities and foresight and inference. I mean, that's just so tight. They tell the jury you can infer that she might have done it.
So, welcome to Social Sessions, and today we're joined with the wonderful Jan Cunliffe, who is the CEO of JENGbA, Joint Enterprise Not Guilty by Association. So, Jan, I'll just talk a wee bit about yourself first. So, where did you kind of grow up and stuff? What about yourself? Where did you grow up?
I was born in Wigan, so born and bred, lived in Wigan most of my life. I've moved about a little bit. At the moment, I live in Warrington, which is only about 25 miles away from Wigan. So I've always lived in the northwest.
And what was just a normal kind of childhood, just a happy childhood, or?
I'd say I had a wonderful childhood, yeah. Yeah, I've got great memories, great parents.
Aye.
Yeah.
So obviously, just going to jump right into it. So obviously, can you explain to the viewers, because obviously joint enterprise is, to the best of your ability, can you try and explain what joint enterprise is?
Well, lawyers and politicians would say it's a very complex area of law. I'd say it's a con. Joint enterprise means, in theory, that 2 or more people that commit a crime and they join in together. Like, for instance, a bank robbery. You've got the getaway driver and the person that goes into the bank and robs the bank. That's a plan and a common purpose. And regardless of whether you're the getaway driver or not, you're actually part of a plan to rob a bank. So that's, to me, is what joint enterprise should mean. In theory, it's good. You know, 2 people commit a crime, 3 people commit a crime together, then they're all guilty of it. However, what you can find is that particularly young people can go out doing what they do, drinking maybe even on the streets, getting into fights, spontaneous, no plan. And someone can get killed. And all of them present in that group, friends, even some of them who are not even at the scene when it happens, will all be found guilty of murder.
So it's obviously there's been some big cases, and we'll talk about Jordan and stuff later on, Jan, right? But I mean, it's amazing that you can actually see that there is a place for joint enterprise, considering what you've been through. But is it the way they manipulate the law? Because that's kind of similar up here. There's a lot of laws that get manipulated. Is that the kind of focus that you're looking at, that joint enterprising? I don't think you even need to call it joint enterprise. I think if you've got the bank, let's talk about the bank robbers. If you've got the bank robbers and you catch them,
either catch them in action. You've got the evidence that they've done it. You know who's drove the car. You know who's been in the bank. You know who's made the plan and put that crime into action. And you would need evidence to do that. You can't you can't just like choose someone and say that's who's done it and not have any evidence. But so you don't really need to manipulate anything, because if you've got the evidence that someone's robbed a bank and someone's drove the car, then it's all there, and you just need to put that to a jury and prove that that evidence is robust and valid. But there's another kind of joint enterprise, and it's called parasitic accessorial liability.
Never heard that.
I never heard of it until a long time after my son was convicted. But that means the perpetrator, someone else carries the intention more so than the perpetrator. So, but without having to prove it. So you have to prove the perpetrator is the perpetrator and their intent, but you don't have to do that with the secondary party. But the secondary party is convicted on less evidence, but serves equal time in prison for that crime. So that, to me, is unfair and doesn't make sense. And what I've found over the years is the level of the evidence, or the low level of the evidence, is such that basically if you were arrested today with a group of your friends who'd been in a fight or whatever, and you knew a little bit about it, or you knew beforehand or afterwards, you're getting the same time as the person that did it, even though you had no plan and played no part in it.
So how is the law applied then? Like how do they apply? Because obviously, it will take Jordan's case. We're going to Jordan's case a wee bit now, right? Obviously, it was quite a big case at the time and stuff like that. But what happened in Jordan's case?
I learned a lot because of Jordan's case. I originally, because I'd seen the evidence against him, which was non-existent, and then watched how it played out in the courtroom, which was about proving that he was at the scene when it happened, which was I felt that was a bit unusual, because we knew he was there. That was the big push on it. He didn't know where he was because he had an eye condition, which meant that he was blind at the time. But to me, it didn't really matter whether he was in the vicinity, because there were about 11 or 12 other people in the vicinity, and they hadn't been charged with murder, and they could see. So I was like, well, why is the prosecutor so fixated with proving where he was? And that's all he had. That was it, and scenarios that had happened weeks before, trying to sort of say that these young children had a propensity to violence. So it was only afterwards, when you sort of think about it, it's because there's something called foresight. And if you can foresee, or should I say, the courts believe that you should foresee what someone else might do, and on that basis, you're as guilty as they are, even if that person who's done it had no intention.
It's very illogical, isn't it?
It's a trick. It's a con.
So I was doing a wee bit of research on it, Jan, and obviously when I was researching, I seen it was kind of made. It was a kind of old ancient law that was for like, was it aristocracy or something like that, or like?
Well, I think murder is common law. And people are quite surprised that murder is common law. It's not in legislation. And joint enterprise is a common law doctrine as well. So when you have common laws, they can change depending on every case. So it's you can use it if you want. You don't have to use it. But people believe that maybe 400 or 500 years ago it was used against the aristocracy because they were dueling. So basically, it was used as a deterrent to stop rich men killing each other, and it worked.
And it worked.
and it worked. They stopped dueling and they stopped killing. Because what would happen there is it was a plan.
Aye.
Because you'd have both men meet at dawn with pistols or swords, and you'd have the seconds. And you'd have the doctors, and everyone who was there knew that there was going to be pistols at dawn, and they all could foresee that one of these people would end up dead or very seriously injured. So that is
a common plan.
That makes sense.
Of course.
Yeah, there's a common purpose there, and there's, and it's planned. But when you're walking down the street with your friends on a Saturday evening, and you're making your way home, and someone comes out of their house, and then there's a bit of violence erupts, and then someone ends up dead because of the delivering of a kick or a punch. That to me is not a plan.
No, and it's so when you grow up in a working class scheme and you grow up in working class areas, boys will be boys. Do you know what I mean? Especially back then. Do you know what I mean? There maybe was a problem with gangs, especially in Glasgow. I don't know, but there was there was things happening that maybe I get why they were maybe trying to shut stuff down, but again, they always come in with so much force, and it's I don't know. I would say it's like a bastardizing of the law. It's like taking a good law and bastardizing it into something that's no what it was meant for.
Yeah. I think. I mean, we're not rife with gangs in Warrington. It's not. There wasn't a problem.
So it wasn't like Glasgow.
No, it wasn't. No. It wasn't like Glasgow or Brixton or Tottenham or anywhere like that, or any urban cities. To me, it felt like. Well, I know for a fact it was political because at the time there was about to be a general election, and both the Labour and Conservatives tagged on to the case, and we had this broken Britain rhetoric where young people in hoodies were all terrorising people on the streets and killing people, which is a nonsense because that really isn't true. But when you feed the public that on a daily basis through the press, they start to be fearful of young people, and they start to believe that, there's groups of 4 or 5 children, because they were children, walking around the streets, killing adults. And that really was how our case began in the newspapers before it even set foot in a courtroom. And I think for the last 17 years, I've been trying to sort of chip away at that first original narrative, which was gangs, murderous, wild animals, feral. They weren't. They were children. My son was not a wolf. He wasn't an animal. He was actually a 15-year-old disabled child. He was blind in both eyes, and one of the things that strikes me most with his case is that he was supposed to foresee what someone else might do, even though he couldn't see that person in the first place. So with Jordan's case, it makes absolutely no sense.
No, I've read Jordan's case bits and bobs, Janet, and I know that he wasn't there, he wasn't involved. It was quite a distance away. Is that right?
Well, it's very difficult to work out, because when he first went to the police station, he thought he'd hung back because people were stealing his chips and rice, and then he didn't know, because other people were saying he was there. He thought that maybe he'd passed it and then came back onto it. But to his knowledge, and he hasn't changed it to this day. The first time he knew something had happened was once it was over, because the victim's daughter was saying, "Who's done this to my dad?" And he walked towards her, and she touched him, and he said, "I don't know, but I'll go up the street, and if there's an ambulance, if they need an ambulance, I'll make sure it comes down the street." And that's exactly what he did. I can't imagine if you've kicked a man to death, you're going to go to the top of the street and tell the police that go down there, he needs an ambulance.
No, that makes no sense.
Yeah, and the boy that did it did a shortcut down a different street, and
the boy that did it,
yeah,
did he ever admit to doing it, or did
the boy that did it was only 16 himself at the time, and in the police station he told his mother, he said, "I think it might be me, Mum, because I did kick him." Because what happened was the victim started to fight. He fell over, and it was when he fell over that Stephen kicked, and because he was falling, he kicked him in the neck, and it was obvious that it was Stephen as well, because his shoe was left there. Now, Stephen he was 16 years old, but he was a really tall kid, and he was something like a size 10. Jordan was a size 5. So there was this thing about Jordan's trainers, and was it his? Why did he have no shoes? And, try and muddy the waters for the jury as if it was his trainer and it was his under the victim's neck. And it was, even the pathologist said, and he was a police forensic pathologist as well, said that the victim died because of one injury, and he would have walked home unaided, no medical attention, without that one injury, and that single injury was the one that killed him and could have only been delivered by one person. So why did five people get charged with murder? To me, it was to find out who did it. But in the end, 3 went to prison with life sentences for murder. So now the public, nobody knows which one did it.
It's I can only speak for myself, and obviously being young, I was 19, so I was a wee bit older. But when you do hear that news that somebody has died and you're in the police station, doesn't matter how big or tough or whatever do you think you are, you do kind of, you go, like, you really don't know, and you've got these trained police officers who are trained in questioning and trained in kind of making you going down a certain path with the questioning and stuff. So, like, when it was me, it was like, it was similar. Like, I admitted to the part that I played in that, but I thought that was what had been the thing, and so I said, like, it was me and it wasn't anybody else. So it kind of put me in a position, because I thought I didn't want to get anybody else into trouble. So I suppose it's like, it's kind of similar in the way that there was 4 of us done with that. Do you know what I mean? It was it was one fatal blow, and I think it's just trying to maybe charge everybody and see, right, what we can get, like how much we can get. I don't know. I don't even know the logic behind it sometimes, because I get the logic behind my case, because there was 4 days there. There was, do you know what I mean? But in Jordan's case, it doesn't really make sense with the joint enterprise. It's a different kind of thing. I mean, I'm talking about art and part, and that's what they call it up here.
Yeah.
Acting in concert. But we ended up, that never even happened in our case. Do you know what I mean? It was like a single conviction anyway. So that was like one of the arguments in my case. But I don't know, obviously, how did Jordan kind of react to the news that this had happened? Because obviously he's only a kid.
I mean, when we were sat there listening to the verdicts, I mean, I'd argue that there must have been a lot of doubt in the jury's mind, because it took them 10 days to reach a verdict. Was
that unanimous, or was it?
Well, yeah.
Is that England? You need that, but didn't you? It's not the same as Scotland, is it?
I think there were 12 for Jordan as well. There was the boy that kicked. So he got guilty of murder, and then there was a second boy. He'd actually pleaded guilty to manslaughter because he'd thrown a jab and connected with the victim's cheek, and it didn't really leave much of a mark, and it wasn't a deadly blow. But he said, if my punches made him fall, and then he ends up dead, I'll plead guilty to manslaughter. Now that made perfect sense to me. But then there was a third boy on the indictment, so he's further up than my son. And bear in mind, both my sons were charged with murder as well. So he's further up. Then he gets a not guilty. So I'm thinking, oh, gosh, we've made it. Because there was no evidence on my son, and he's, he couldn't be a witness for the prosecution because he didn't see it, and he couldn't defend himself because he didn't know what he was defending himself against. No. And they said guilty, and he sort of this shrill scream, sort of, and this is how lovely he is. The first thing he did was turn around to look at his brother, and his face was horrified, because he thought that if he got guilty, then his brother would have got guilty as well. And he was showing concern. He screamed, but he showed concern for his younger brother. And then his younger brother got a not guilty. So it was like, it didn't make any sense.
No.
Didn't make any sense at all. And even the judge kind of looked at me and looked at the jury as if to go, whoa, what's going on here? And the prosecutor did it as well. And I can remember the prosecutor's face and thinking, you've just played with my children's life, and now you're shocked when you've got a guilty verdict. And you could see he looked like he was shocked, but he played Russian roulette with my children. And I would argue there were 6 bullets in that gun, and my son was always going to come a cropper because of it.
No, it's such a sad. To be honest, when I was researching it, Jan, I've done a wee bit. I couldn't really make head nor tail with what was happening, and what, like, I couldn't see where Jordan fitted in. Do you know what I mean? Like that was only my take on it. Do you know what I mean? And then other people can argue what they want, but it was certainly, when I was looking at it, I couldn't see anything that would have placed. And another thing we spoke about earlier is probably that term murder.
It's the most heinous crime you can commit.
So you say murder, you think you're like Ian Huntley, Peter Tobin, like people like that.
Yeah,
do you know what
bad.
I mean? What happened with Jordan in that isn't murder.
No.
It's culpable homicide or manslaughter, whatever you want to call it, at the best.
Completely innocent young man.
That's
which is what it
that's
is. Yeah.
Exactly. But even for the boy that kicked, it's no. To me, it's
the cruelty.
No,
the cruelty of what happened to him as well. People ask me if I'm angry about, because Stephen in the courtroom realised that, because nobody was focusing on who'd done what and how it was done, and it had been turned into this big fiasco of lies, and it was lies.
So did they just basically generalise everybody and just say this gang attacked this person and that's it? Like, doesn't
they
matter
were all in it together.
Doesn't matter
all
what part
in
you
it
played,
together.
right?
Yeah, all in it together, and it made it very confused. And this is why they call it complex and confusing, because the confusion begins in that courtroom by confusing the jury. But ultimately, really, I mean, I've noticed a lot of people that come to me and say, this is what happened on our case, and it's not true, and this is not true, and blah, blah, blah. And I know the newspapers think my son, well, whether they know or whatever, but they report that my son kicked a man to death. But if you look between the lines, there isn't a journalist alive or reported on our case that has actually said what Jordan did, because there is nothing that he did, and there's nothing that the courtroom said that he did. But yet they still call him a murderer. So it boils down to that jury room where the jury gets a piece of paper, and it's basically a multiple choice, and something comes out in that room that isn't actually in the courtroom, and you suddenly realise why the courtroom did what it did. And why it kept you there, because once you get in the jury room, there's these questions, and one of them is, do you think such and such a body could have had foresight, possible foresight? Well, we're all guilty of that, then, aren't we?
Of course, you can't. You can't answer that. That's just like, you would need to get into somebody's head to get into that. Like, it's making assumptions. Yeah. And the assumptions aren't supposed to be.
I mean, how do you bag up evidence of foresight at the scene of a crime? Because they're
madness,
basically saying well, we all have it, don't we?
Of course.
So it's kind of almost like murder by telepathy, I suppose, but it doesn't make any sense.
No.
It doesn't make any sense. And even if I did foresee that you're going to go and do something this evening, doesn't mean I intend you to do it.
No.
Or that I'm guilty of you doing that. It's just guesswork, isn't it, half the time?
How many people do you think on a weekend say, I'm going to kill him, or I'm going to murder him, or use that term loosely, just to say, you'll get mothers that will say it about their kids, or like whatever, do you know what I mean? It's a term that gets used.
Don't ever put that in a text message.
No.
Even in the most flippant of ways, because they'll look through your text messages, 10,000, 100,000 until they find it. And even if it's not about the person who ends up dead, that will be used against you, because it's like the courts don't understand normal people's language, and they don't understand that we've got senses of humour, and that we might say things in the spur of the moment.
I know.
Or that we might do things in the spur of the moment, but that doesn't mean what I do in the spur of the moment makes anyone who's with me or knows me culpable for what I do. I am responsible for my actions and mine alone, and that's it.
So after Jordan's case, obviously, how does JENGbA start up?
I just thought we'd got a crazy prosecutor, a really bad legal team, and a judge that didn't know what he was doing. Because our judge had never done a murder trial before. He was someone who sort of did trials involving banks and financial.
So more kind of like commercial law and stuff.
Yeah, he wasn't a criminal judge or certainly not one who'd done murder. But it doesn't mean he doesn't know the law. But so you automatically assume that it might be because of that. And I googled it.
We're kind of led to believe that these people are above bias, are above kind of. I don't know if that's certainly in my case. That was the terms they used when we were saying, look, that might be a conflict of interest there, and they were saying, look, these people operate at a higher level. There's no bias and stuff. And I had a KC. I don't know if you know, Chris Daw. He's actually a wonderful KC. He was on the podcast and we were talking about joint, and he was saying how horrific it was, a law that was. And Chris is like a great guy, and he just says he would tear up the whole law, the legal system, and start again. Do you know what I mean? And I think the way he was saying it was like, he changed my view, because I used to say, look, the victims, they deserve their say, right? Which they kind of, I still do. I still think they do, right?
They deserve the truth.
They deserve the truth. They definitely deserve the truth.
Yeah.
And they deserve to say how it's affected them, right? Whatever, right? Mm-hmm. But what Chris said to me when I said that was, I don't think so. He says the law is supposed to be impartial. Yeah. It's supposed to be very unbiased. So see, if me or you, right, were to start making legislation, you probably would be biased towards like helping people and going, that I know that case was wrong and I know that one. So do you know what I'm talking about?
Over the last, I'll be honest, over the last 17 years, I've developed a bias to the opposite side. And it's like, I don't want to do that because
but you recognise it.
But I recognise it, and I recognise that it's not their fault. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The same way as it's not my fault or my son's fault that someone's dead. But it's that you've got to retrain yourself that the people whose fault it is are the people that have done this to us. Mm-hmm. So it's the police, the CPS, the judges, the politicians. Mm-hmm. I mean, joint enterprise is definitely policy driven. Mm-hmm. The tough on crime rhetoric. Every successive government wants to prove that they're so tough on crime that you're all safe on the streets.
I know.
And back in England right now, our prisons are so full that they're seriously, it's so out of control. They do not know what to do.
Aye.
And they're in an absolute panic. And as a campaigner, I've been writing to prime ministers and MPs and to the Ministry of Justice, and I've been telling them, if you keep doing this with joint enterprise, you're going to have nowhere to put anyone. Right. You're not going to have enough prisons, and bingo, where are we?
I know.
15 years later, where are we? And they're not actually accepting. They're saying long sentences, which because the sentences have increased. But if you consider one boy, I mean, I'll refer to a case in Manchester from 2018. One young person cut the throat of another young person. One. 10 young people were convicted of that murder. Everyone knew who'd done it, including the police, all the witnesses, all the other young people, and the prosecution. But instead of going for him and him alone, they went for all of them. And between 10 of them, they have to serve 168 years in prison.
And there was only one injury?
There was only one person killed by one person, yes. So they all got, not all of them, but most of them got life sentences of 20 years plus.
And obviously you have insight to that case, Jan. Was there a common plan in that case? Or?
No, there were young people playing football on the park, and another person arrived with a knife, and he's sort of getting a bit, there's a chase ensues, a little bit of violence. And then one of them goes out of the scope and continues to chase him, gets the knife off him and cuts his throat. It's dreadful. It's dreadful. But the others have moved. They're not there. They're not standing over when it happens. It's in the middle of the road. There's traffic. So there's witnesses who've got nothing to do with it, who see it and see everything that happens. And it's really clear who's done it.
Is this the case? Some of the boys were like literally no miles away, but literally like
they were. I've walked through the scene with one of the mothers, and it's like if you're from a distance. I mean, one of them said to his mother at that because it was in the middle of the road, and he saw him, and there was a movement, and her son thought that movement was the boy he killed, was him slapping him or smacking him across the face, but in reality, he was cutting his throat. Which is absolutely dreadful.
Of course. No, it's like
it is dreadful. I mean, when I talk about it now, I think this is a real thing.
No, definitely. And that you could say that boy probably deserves to be guilty of murder. Do you know what I mean? But
to take nine with him,
it's madness.
To take nine with him,
especially when there's no common plan. I think if you've got, this is the way I see it. Like, say if you've got 10 boys in 2 cars who have got text messages, or there's a wad of evidence to show that these 2 motors are going to get this one person.
Yeah.
Then that's joint enterprise. Do you know what I mean? Like, to an extent.
I think sometimes kids they are stupid sometimes.
Of course.
Yeah, you know.
But immature. Do you know what I mean?
And it's like, oh, come on, we're all going to go have a fight. I mean, there's a case in London, Joe Appiah, and he said they were all in the school uniforms getting off the bus and they went meeting these other kids in another area because they're all going to have a fight. And it's like, oh, yeah, that's what we do. I mean, they did that when I was at school.
I know.
We'd all turn up somewhere in our school. You know, I mean, the terrible thing is now that young people carry knives and they use them.
I know.
When I was at school, you know, you'd run after each other and then you'd run off and no one ever even touched each other. It was a chase. It was cat and mouse, wasn't it? But,
it's a territorial thing and it's stupid, but
yeah,
when you're young, it's like, and you're hanging about the streets, it's just the way, it's just the way things go. And sometimes when I was younger, you're talking like maybe 50, 60 people hanging about. Do you know what I mean? And swing parks and stuff. And things happened when you had absolutely no knowledge. There'd be like people fighting and the fights would break out and you'd be sitting at that set. That would just happen. That was the way things happened. It was in school.
And it still does because we're all, you know, we're as a species, we're all still exactly the same as we were 100 years ago.
Especially when you fling substances and alcohol and drugs and stuff.
And we're quite social animals. We do like to roam around in packs and have our friends and impress our friends. But in the case of Joe Appiah, he said, I mean, his story is that when they got there, these boys were, they felt like men because they were like 17, 18, 19, which to me is like, well, that's still a kid. But to a 15-year-old, it's a man. And they had weapons. So the chase became a little bit dangerous and scary. And they ran off. And he said someone had thrown a knife on the floor. So out of fear, he sort of picked it up like, oh gosh, what am I going to do? And he's on a park about at least 500 metres away. So he's like another Jordan. He's not even there. So we might as well be blind, hadn't he? He's not even there. And someone out of his group of friends stabs one of the other group. And he dies.
I considerable distance away.
A considerable distance to the extent that he didn't see it and didn't even know it had happened. And yet he gets convicted of murder.
Same sentence and stuff.
12 years he got, yeah.
It's shocking, isn't it? It's like when you see, because with this, if you look at the way some of these politicians that have behaved recently, and we did even different things, like when you're seeing them with money and stuff, and we know that they're obviously complicit and they know each other are doing it, they're stealing money and stuff. Why do you think the law doesn't apply to them?
Because they think we're scum and they're better than us.
I agree.
Yeah. I mean, let's say it like it is. You know, even they don't know.
It's for the working class, isn't it? It's
to get the scum off the streets. That's how honestly, that is how they look at us. And this is why the newspapers call us scum in the newspaper, so that other people who don't realise that they're scum as well are reading the paper about me as scum, but they don't realise that they're part of that scum too. And we all turn against each other.
And then the next thing their son's done, and then they're needing your help.
And then they're calling me up. Yeah. I mean, the first few years was dreadful for me. I mean, I've lost track of how many people wanted to rape and murder me, and just because I was saying the truth. and how many people wanted my son dead in prison, you know.
It's no easy to
and it's
campaign. It's no easy to campaign,
Yeah.
Jan, and you've shown like incredible resilience to build what you've built, and you've built a charity that's well respected now, and actually helps people now.
But I always find it really strange that people who don't agree with me or don't agree with murder want to murder me.
I know.
You know, it's like, well, you're worse than anyone, because if you want to murder me because I'm talking about the truth and saying that this is not right, and I want to save you and your children from a life worse than fate,
if you do
so
that,
you're gonna send me a text message about how you're gonna murder me.
Aye. Which is premeditated.
Well, I could, that's conspiracy to murder. I could quite easily have gone to the police and got a lot of people into a lot of trouble, but I didn't.
I know.
You know, because I'm a patient person, because I know that if you keep on and you keep on and you keep on, and it's not easy. And I know, I was just really fortunate that, I met Gloria as well, because there's two of us, two separate sides of the country.
It's a shame Gloria couldn't make it today, but it's
because it was just a fluke, I suppose.
I don't believe in flukes. I believe that I believe things happen for a reason. I think we probably met for a reason, Jan. But I
think if we hadn't met at the time that we met, we would have met at some point. We would have there would have always been a JENGbA.
Aye.
It would have always happened, because I just knew how wrong it was, and I can't when something is wrong, I can't let go of it. I've got family members with their children, and my son's out of prison now. I could actually relax and get a nice job and
I know.
head towards retirement. But there are some children who were children, but they're now men and they're still in prison. And it boils my blood, and I feel like they're my children as well. And I can't let go until we've got, I know I can't save every child and I can't save every man or woman, but
it becomes like a family, but doesn't it?
It is a family. JENGbA is a family.
See, we've got that. We do that. We've got that. The Miscarriage of Justice organisation. That's like a family. You feel like
you feel loved.
Everybody just gets each other.
Yeah,
everybody knows.
Yeah,
Aye.
You don't have to explain yourself, because we already know.
Aye.
Because everyone who comes to us now, like I said earlier, they try to explain, and it's like, you don't need to explain, because I know what's happened, because every single one of us have been caught up in a possibility of foresight.
Aye. So how many live joint enterprise cases is there? Convictions?
We've actually got in prison at the moment roughly 1,600.
Wow.
And that's the tip of the iceberg.
Aye.
There are people inside who don't even know why they're inside.
I watched a thing. I don't know. You'll know what it was. It was about a joint enterprise, and it was like there was the wee boy didn't know. Listen, none of us are taught at school about the law. None of us are taught about how to use forensics. None of us are taught about how to
the language.
Operate when a murder detective questioning you. Like these things are.
Some of the things some of the things my son said to me was like, "What's propensity?" Because the prosecutor kept going on the propensity to violence. Now, my son had never had a fight in his life. Maybe a couple of slaps at the back of the heads with his mates, but he's never...
Did he no previous convictions?
No. Well, he's got robbing an empty bottle of aftershave,
Aye, so
because he was, and the security guard actually rang me up and said, "There's clearly something wrong with your child. Come and collect him." And I said, "No, take him to the police station because he shouldn't be robbing." And he said, "Yeah, but the aftershave, there's nothing in it. It's a tester and there's nothing in it." And I was told later that if I hadn't taken him to the police station, I just wanted him to get, you don't steal. That went against him in the courtroom. They used a mother trying to teach her son not to steal against him in the courtroom. Because he would, But and this propensity to violence. So he was on remand. So every night when we get back after the court, he'd be like, "Right, what does that mean?" And what does
and then you probably don't even know what half the words mean, because they do use these big words.
The worst one was the tacit agreement. I had to work that one out.
What is that? Is that
it's kind of made like a silent, wink and a nod and all that.
Agree with the evidence and stuff.
Yeah, a momentary thing like that, but you don't actually do that. But it's kind of done by some kind of instinctive thought process, which is, again, I don't believe anyone can do that.
No.
Least of all a child who's blind in the dark.
No.
And
what do you think, like, obviously...
Semantics, it's just words. It's all just words.
It's showmanship. But I don't know, like with Jordan's trial, right? But certainly when I was with my trial, Paul McBride controlled the trial. He was like a QC for up this way, who a KC, but he was very charismatic, talented lawyer, controlled the room very well, and whatever he said went.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? He controlled the full trial. To the extent where the judge was asking her, because it was similar, the judge in our case had never, she just become up for a sheriff, and it was her first kind of big trial. To the extent that she was saying, Paul, what is the law here, and stuff like that, which shows that these people they're no above us, and they don't. I don't know if you've done this, Jan, but at the start you kind of put them on a pedestal.
You think they're so wise.
You think like, oh, right, he's got my back, and he's going to, and they're telling you everything you want to hear, and all this kind of stuff.
It's a script.
I know.
It's a script. I can learn a script, and they just act. I mean, I was in we've got a Westminster Commission going on at the moment, and on one of the panel members is a KC called Keir Monteith, and he was actually describing to the Westminster Commission that you just have to be a slick, smooth talking prosecutor, and you can convince the jury that there is evidence when there is none.
Definitely.
But he's just recently done a case, and he was on the case, and there were 7 defendants, and because the legal teams kind of worked together, they didn't let any of the young people stand in and give evidence in the witness box. And the reason for that was, we haven't got any evidence. There's nothing for them to defend themselves against.
I know.
And it worked. The case collapsed, and they all got not guilty. But not all lawyers do that.
No.
They'll actually work against each other, and they'll let their client do a cutthroat defence in the full knowledge that it's their client that's done it.
I know. No, I know that all too well. Do you know what I mean? I know how they work with that kind of stuff. But I think the way that you've got to see the court is like, as we were saying, it's like it is definitely like for working class people. So I'll try and even say it this way, like, so how many people in the joint enterprise, how many people have been done in kind of affluent areas?
Well, first of all, we don't have any figures because the MOJ and the CPS have never kept data or figures, and there's a reason for that.
They don't keep figures on the joint enterprise?
None at all. Nothing at all, no. Because we sued them a couple of years ago, and we won. We had the settlement out of court because they knew that we would win, and they've done a pilot scheme. They did a 6-month pilot scheme, just 5 areas, and you know who they're targeting, because in that the results of that data showed us that if you're 16 times more likely to get prosecuted with joint enterprise if you're black.
So it's targeting.
It's targeting young black men, and you see the figures, and it's like, 18 to 25, there's a lot of them, but there's no 40 plus. There will be, but not to the same extent. White middle-aged men, they're not on there. As if white middle-aged men never actually have a fight or go and have a brawl in the pub. I know. And they do.
And it's not even like gangs, because we talk about gangs, like, and that maybe that's where joint enterprise could work if it was like operating for actually getting like organised gangs.
No, it doesn't. They don't use it for organised crime gangs.
No.
They use the evidence and whatever the individual, the crime they committed, they do that. And that's what they need to do with everyone.
So it doesn't get used in organised crime?
If you go into a trial, I go into trials and I listen. If you go into a trial where there's 10 young black or mixed race teenagers, young adults, you'll find that the word gang, drugs, drill, rap music, videos, the Cribs and the Bloods, seriously, from America, honestly, postcode gangs and all this. It's nuts. It really is nuts. And you'll have the police like trying to disseminate the tunes that they might have wrote, the songs that they might have wrote, and try and say that it's about this murder that then happened, and it's dreadful. It's just completely and utterly racist, and it wins a jury over every time, because I think people watch too much TV and American TV, and they think like, if you're from Moss Side or inner city London, you must all be raving gang members and going around killing each other. But it's not the case. People do, young people do get stabbed, but they don't get stabbed in multiples of 10.
No, you get like, so Glasgow had a really bad gang culture at one point, probably the same as Moss Side and stuff like that in the 90s and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't think that's there anymore.
No, it's not there.
It's not the same. It's not like that. But I think when it comes to the way they want to prosecute, it's the whatever narrative they want to put.
The narrative is if you're white and working class, is that you're a pack of wolves, you're feral youth. So there's two different forms of two derogatory languages that are used. So you're clearly getting a prosecutor who'll go, oh, they're all black, so I'll use this one. Or they're all white, so I'll use this one. And then if you got, I mean, there are cases where, I mean, there was one in Manchester where one friend stabbed his other friend and there were two of them together. But this kid lived in Hales Barnes. So the other friend never set foot in a police station. But the one who did the stabbing, you know, he was playing at gangster. We can't ruin his future. He's going to go to university.
Aye.
He didn't get done for murder. He didn't even get done for manslaughter.
Mental
in and out, in a flash. Even his parents wrote, the Daily Mail or something like that. Don't quote me on that, but because he was inside at Christmas, there was some article in a newspaper, oh, let him out. He's going to miss Christmas with his parents.
It's crazy.
My son missed about 16 Christmases with me. In fact, he continues to miss Christmases with me because he's not allowed to come to my house still, even though he's served his sentence and he's been out of jail for almost 5 years. I'll never have a Christmas with him at my house because, you know, his license agreement says he's not allowed. So the punishment continues with him.
Oh, the punishment never ends.
Never ends, no.
No, it never ends.
People think you come out of prison and it's done. It's not. And this thing when victims, bereaved families say life should mean life, well, it does. It's 99 years.
I know. No, people. I don't think people get. You're serving your sentence in the community. You know, it's no like it's still.
You're under threat of someone not liking you and you going back to prison again. And I think once you get out, that's the last thing that you ever want. You don't ever want to go back to prison. No. But you're hanging on a thread, not committing any crime, but worried that something could happen, that someone else could put you in that position, and that's a really awful sort of to have to live on that knife edge.
It's a life sentence, and it's people can say like what they want, like life means life and all this kind of stuff. And we spoke about it about it earlier, Jan, a wee bit, and you were saying like you would probably abolish prisons, right? And we had like Sarah Armstrong, who's like one of the top criminologists in Scotland, and she's an abolitionist as well of prisons. They
don't work.
They definitely don't. I would be lying if I said I would say that I would abolish all prisons, right? Because I think there's certain people and certain crimes that they deserve to go to prison. But I know where you and Sarah are coming from, where it could be like a hospital, because some of these things are crimes are clearly people who are deranged or. I
think people think that we've always had prisons, and that they're quite a modern concept. And I think people think that when the bad people, we catch them and put them in prison and we're all safe. There's lots of bad people walking around in the street right next to you right now, and you don't even know that. The best
criminals are all outside.
You don't even know that they're there. But I mean,
the best criminals don't get caught.
I know. You know what I mean? There's probably serial killers all over the country. We don't even know who they are. But we're never safe. There's always going to be a bad person. But there's people who, you know, there's young lads in jail who you don't want them to be with those bad people either.
Do you know what gets me the new, Jan, right? I don't know how you feel about this, right? But I know people, I'll get shot down for this about you, but I'm going to say it anyway. This conscription thing that's coming up, right? Where they're going to make young people go over and fight in a war that nobody wants to fight.
I'd go to prison first before
I would honestly, I would go, but I wouldn't fight.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is like
make them murderers.
It's all right.
It's all right to me.
That's not murder, but that's that's war. No, I'm not. Listen, I mean, I'm with you, but what I'm saying is, when it's all right for them, it's no. Right, you can go and we'll give you a gun, and you can go and kill Ukrainian people you've never met, or Russian people you've never met.
Sometimes killing's all right.
Aye, and you're like,
Yeah.
I don't want to do that.
It's-
Well,
no.
if you don't do that, you're going to
Well,
jail.
back in the First World War, they hung you if you wouldn't kill someone in the war. So it's like, if you don't kill someone, we'll kill you. And they did.
I know. I think
And then these
I
days,
know.
we've got people in prison for killing people who haven't killed anyone, and that's okay as well. It's so warped,
It's bizarre.
and
isn't
we
it?
all and we go along
we
with
go
it.
along with it. I know.
But we go along with it because we don't understand what's happening.
No, that's it. It's conditioning.
Yeah,
It's,
and it's like
and
this.
they've done well.
It's like this
They've done it
prison
well.
thing. I mean, we've got prisons for children. Putting children in prison for like 15 years or longer than they've been alive, and then letting them out. What good is that going to do?
I know.
You know, what kind of adult is that going to be? It's just going to be an absolute mess. And I know there are bad people and they need to be put somewhere, and maybe some of them never need to be allowed anywhere near society ever again. But that doesn't mean everyone has to go to Belmarsh and places like that.
It's a
Yeah,
very small minority of people that we're talking about, and I think this is where the media have played a great role in creating this kind of scaremongering and stuff into it. And it's like, and I get like people will say, because there's loads of bad things happening now, and it's because to me it's because of poverty.
yeah,
It's because when you put people in and you get a guy, there's five guys that have got more money than the full country, and then there's people that have got nothing, and they're grown up, and the people that they look up to are the people with the nice girlfriends, the flashy cars and stuff like that, because that's what we're getting showed on social media as well.
and you kind of can't even work for that anymore because no one gets a decent wage to even work the way to that.
I know.
But I look on social media as well, and it's like even the police, when they're talking about joint enterprise, because I'm doing this question and answer thing with someone on Instagram at the moment, they're answering me. The answers are not right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, even
Just coming for the police.
From the police. So I'm pretending to be this young person, and they're giving me the wrong information. So instead of spending billions every year giving people the wrong information and putting people in prison for huge amounts of time, why don't we use that money? And there are areas where you know that there is troubled people. Spend that to help them flourish instead of waiting for them to do something wrong and then punishing them.
No, there's so much trauma in these impoverished in drugs and addiction and all these kind of things that are driving all this kind of stuff. And there's so many good boys in jail, really good boys in jail that have got violent tendencies because of the way they've been brought up. Yeah. And this is what I seen a lot of I've got a lot of great friends who could be violent on the tip like that. Yeah. But that's the way they were brought up, and if you're brought up like that, then it's a kind of. There's
a lot of people in prison with mental health issues as well, and it's like, you know, and sometimes good people do something bad as well.
Definitely,
you know.
Well, I don't know if you ever seen the one. The one that got me was it was this female nurse or a female doctor, right? And I don't know if you remember this. She stabbed her boyfriend, but she'd previous for it. She stabbed her boyfriend before, but she came from a very affluent family. Yeah. And the judge basically said it would be a waste sending her to prison because she's talented as a doctor.
But you know what? It would have been, from little Johnny from the council estate as well.
Oh, definitely. It should be for everybody.
It's almost like our lives can be wasted. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, I've got mums, and you know, they've got at the moment they've got 6 jobs, so they can keep traveling up and down the country to go visit the kids and send the kids money. And it's not just the person in prison whose life changes forever; it's their entire family as well.
Oh, the ripple effect's huge. Yeah, and that's for everybody. Yeah. I'm including the victims in that. Do you know what I mean? That's like the ripple effect's huge, but there's forgotten victims in that, and the families, and that's what I'm saying, like yourself. So I'll kind of take you back to just like how JENGbA was created, right? So JENGbA was created. How did it become? Because obviously we've now got lawyers, you've got politicians, and you've got people like that on your side now. How did you manage that, Jan? I know it was a lot of hard work, but how did you manage to kind of... I mean,
we were lucky because someone, a producer from Panorama actually came into our magistrates court when the boys were first charged. and they're in this glass panel, and it sounds really corny, doesn't it? Put my hand on the window, and it's like, you're all right. And Jordan had to have his lifted up because he couldn't see me. And we did this thing. And she said that really didn't strike her as the kind of boys who go around kicking men's heads in the middle of the night. It just didn't sit with her. So after the trial, and Jordan was found guilty, and all the press even the New York Times wanted to know my story as a mother having an evil child. What's it like having such an evil child? And we'll pay you to give us this story. And he was like, well, he's not. He's blind.
I know.
Write that story.
I know.
So I texted her and said, you're probably the only one who's got the balls to do this story. Are you up for it? So, but the judge in his wisdom again put a gagging order on Jordan's eye condition. So we could never say that he was blind. Which was quite strange because he gave his name knowing that his brother was a co-defendant who was acquitted. They gave his name and his address. So basically they put his brother, identified his brother who was only 15 at the time. Did they get a reason
why the guy got
No, I wrote to them and everything, and I was spitting feathers and spending all my energy trying to get to the bottom of that.
And it's so
to the end where I just thought, I can't be bothered anymore because I need to be doing something bigger.
So sad, but like you don't even get, because it gets to the stage, and I've said it like I'm at the stage now they don't even answer me. Like
you can get lost. You can get lost in the things that really torment you, and you feel like they're really important. And I think they throw all that at you. They do
definitely, and it's, I think when they know there's mistakes being made in cases and stuff like that, they really lock up ranks. You know what I mean? Like, well, anybody that's came into my case that's been like Russell Finlay and other people like people that are kind of high up, kind of journalists that have looked at your case and been like convinced that you're innocent, and then they take it so far, and then they can't take, like, the editing team
because they close ranks and they stop.
And they say the red tape comes up, and then before
noble cause corruption, isn't it?
I know.
Yeah,
I know.
That's okay. But we got the panorama done, and that's where I met Gloria, because they couldn't do Jordan's story as a singular thing. And I was glad about that, because I said, no, it's got to be bigger than just Jordan, because they wouldn't be so bad.
No.
They wouldn't be so bad. Because one of the other things I realised when we come out of the court, and I said to the solicitor in the car, this is what they do to the black kids in London, isn't it? And he'd looked at me and went, yes. Aye. And it was like, it was like a real understanding. You read these stories in the, well, I didn't read the newspapers anyway, but you hear these stories and you see these mugshots of faces in newspapers, or you're in the shop, and it was like, it's been under my nose for all these years, but I didn't realise, and it just made perfect sense. So I knew there had to be other people. Aye. I just didn't realise how many.
So when you start, were you overwhelmed with the amount?
Well, we put an advert in Inside Time, and because we launched in 2010 in Liverpool, and we wanted to let a load of red balloons off. And we got, I think, 250 men and women replied. Mm-hmm. So we let off another, I think maybe another 100 or maybe another 50 balloons. And we thought, well, it might be 300 people in prison. I'd say there's at least 10,000. And there's probably more than that. That's probably a really conservative figure. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And until someone can prove me wrong, then I'm going to stick to that 10,000.
I don't know. So like I've said it up here before. Like, so the logo that we've got in our prisons in Scotland is unlocking potential and transforming lives for the better. I've never seen that. Like, I don't see that at all. Like, there's a few good projects now in prison, right? A couple of good things that are going on, but they touch very, very small amounts of people.
How can you unlock potential in someone who's still got another 20 years to serve?
And plus, you're getting re-traumatized every day. Every day you wake up, and especially if you shouldn't be there. Yeah, you're getting you're getting every single day. We've
got kids. They'll be 40. They'll be in the 40s.
What's the youngest people you've got, Jan?
The youngest we've ever had was, I think he was 12.
12-year-old.
Yeah. 12 years
Did
old.
they get convicted of murder?
Yeah, and then a 13-year-old as well, yeah. And the person that did the crime was 19. But the children got convicted with him.
I mean, what
We've got
use
quite a lot. We've got far more children than we. I mean, we're the only.
is it all working class areas it's coming from?
Of course it is. Yeah. But it's we're the only country in Europe that still gives children life sentences. But we're the only country in Europe that gives children who haven't even murdered anyone life sentences for murder. So we're double horrendous.
But if it's a law that doesn't make sense. Even when I was researching it, it's very hard to. And I've studied law, by the way. I've got like a law degree to an extent, and I couldn't make it head nor tail it. Like it's all over the place. And then when you see different QCs, like I think Michael Mansfield. I think he maybe spoke about it and says how bad it was and stuff like that. So I read a kind of article he wrote about it, and his probably made the most sense. And he was talking about kind of basically like going for changing the words and using rhetoric and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that.
I mean, I would argue just use evidence. Dead simple.
I know.
Because if I murdered you, you couldn't put me in prison for your murder unless you found some evidence, whether it was blood on my hands or the murder weapon or CCTV footage. You couldn't do it. And it would be really, really difficult. But if you put another two people in the room with me, you don't need anything.
No.
You just, it's all opinion and possibilities and foresight and inference. I mean, that's just so tight. They tell the jury you can infer that she might have done it. It's like you can grab anyone off the streets and infer that they've done it then, can't you? If we've got evidence, you need to have evidence, particularly if you're going to get found guilty of murder and spend the rest of your life with that conviction and spend 20, 30 years in prison, then you need to go there for evidence, not inference or foresight or possibilities. Definitely. It has to be what you did, and you have to be able to prove that that's what I did. Definitely. And that might contribute. I mean, we had what was called the significant contribution bill that we tried to get through Parliament last year. And I've since heard a KC say it should actually be more than a significant contribution. If you're going to go to prison for murder, it should be a very significant contribution. And I agree.
So there seems to be like that's different. It's different because I'll tell you, see Scotland, the cases in that are very close ranked. What I found when I was talking to Chris Daw was saying basically there's a lot of cases down there know that England's a mess, like know the law's a mess. Is that true? Or
probably, yeah, because a lot of them, I mean, if I had my way, you either prosecute or you defend when it comes to particularly in a joint enterprise case. Because you can't go, if you're prosecuting and you're prosecuting on crap evidence and you believe that that's okay, how are you going to fight for your client the month after when you're defending him? You're not.
Is that what's happening?
I mean, pardon my language, but I call it a circle of shit. Yeah. And lawyers are self-employed.
Oh, I
so
mean,
you're not going to get there's a paycheck at the end of it, and
we know that
it's easy.
They kid on with each other. It's all show playing, but they all go for drinks together at the end of the trial and stuff like that.
I mean, if you've got a case with 10 defendants and you've got 10 barristers, 10 KCs, 10 clerks and secretaries. If you go for the one person, you've only got one of each. It feels to me like it's jobs for the boys. Seriously. And we're the fodder. We're the fodder at the end. We're making them a paycheck and paying the mortgage by allowing them to destroy our children. Yeah.
I know. Yeah. And it's no even, it's like, as you say, like maybe 10 people in the dock, the amount of money that's costing.
Billions every year.
It's crazy.
Billions.
It's crazy amounts.
Yeah.
But it's making the rich richer, isn't it?
Yeah, costing billions, yeah. But like those billions, if you've got those billions, which they always seem to have a huge amount of money when it comes to crime and punishment, but when it comes to feeding kids and youth clubs and libraries, there's no magic money tree, is there?
No.
But when you want £6 billion to build another prison, we've got that. Yeah. Yeah. And when you build another prison, you have to find the bodies to put in the prison.
I know.
It's a cycle. It's just a vicious cycle. And they will find them.
I don't know how if you have got this down in England. I know you have actually. the privatising the prisons. I don't believe, like I've said this numerous times. We've got Addiewell, who's run by like Sodexo, who are a food company. I don't understand. I don't understand why.
They're contracts.
I know,
they?
like why
Profit out of misery. Seriously.
definitely. It's like so. See for me, right, to set up a prison, I'm looking at Scotland, right, and I'm going, what is the crime rate's going to be in 10 years? Because it's an investment. You're only you're investing in crime, right? Because you're going, is crime going to be here in 10 years? Right, it will be. So let's build the jail because we're going to profit off it. That's the only way you would do it. Because if you were looking at it and going, crime's going to fall, they would go, there's no point in doing this. No, I think the state, if you break your contract with society, the state should punish you.
Absolutely.
It shouldn't be a food company that's punishing you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think England's the same. I think there's a lot of private prisons down there.
Yeah, there's too many. There shouldn't be private prisons. There shouldn't be.
No.
Because they want most bodies.
I know. And they don't know how to run prisons. Like it's.
I mean, if it was the state prison run by this, I mean, they're still getting taxpayers' money, but they're creaming some of that off for themselves as profit.
I know.
What?
I know.
That is nonsense. So we've got people living in rat-infested prisons right now because you have to be mindful that somebody needs to make a bit of a profit out of certain prisons.
I know. No, it's bizarre. It's just like a class thing. It's like it's always been a class thing. The working class, we spoke about it earlier. They've divided us very well, and I think when it comes to the crime and punishment thing, you can read books like Machiavelli and Dostoevsky, and I know they were very clever writers, but they do speak a lot of truth.
Yeah.
When they say like to look at the how well a society is running. Look at its prison system. Do you know what I mean? And then
even Churchill said that, didn't he? And he was a slight monster on the sly, wasn't he? Yeah. But it's true. But I don't think people realise we've had this thing for the last 20, 30 years where prison's a holiday camp.
Oh, no.
Well, George, I've been in such dire straits. Me sometimes, if that's a holiday camp, I'd have gone.
I know. So destroyed. I don't know what holiday camps you see when you're walking in the corner and there's guys getting slashed and there's guys like
the suicide rates are just through the roof at the moment.
Do you just have the spice problem in there?
Spice problems, self-harming, mental health issues, everything.
It causes like
massive,
when I was in severe
massive
damage.
Overcrowding, 23 hours a day lockdown. It's dreadful. It's almost like the COVID restrictions, and that regime has never left some of the prisons.
Still
and
going.
They're packing them in, and there won't be any room for anyone.
And see, the staff are obviously leaving because
the staff are leaving in droves, and they can't get any newcomers. And you know,
I don't blame them.
No,
I don't blame the staff. I don't blame the staff like that. I think a lot of people are going in there with the intentions of, I'm going to go in here and like rehabilitate people and
not
stuff
possible.
like that.
There's no education.
There's like that.
I mean, some places there will be education, but I think it's limited.
I got a degree in prison, Jan, right? I got a degree in prison, and when we were doing it, there was 4 years in Scotland doing it at the time. Out of the whole prison system, there was 4 people doing a degree.
In England, if you can only be in the last 6 years of your sentence before you can do a degree. So if you've got a 26-year sentence, you've got to do 20 years before you can actually put in for a degree.
So you've got 20 years of building up trauma, addiction, all this sort of stuff, and then
you might be dead by then anyway. So you don't need to bother. Yeah, it's nuts. I mean, I don't know. I don't understand what you expect a person to be after 20, 26 years.
What
does that? I know. How's that a punishment?
I know.
How's that rehabilitation? There's no rehabilitation.
So you might
as well. It's worse than a death penalty.
I think the public believe. I genuinely believe the public believe that bad people are going into prison and they're getting the chance to get rehabilitated. This is what the public think.
Oh, I think they think they're walking on green grass and they're all wearing stripes and sweeping their landing and whistling and, having a great breakfast and all playing table tennis and pool and on the Xbox and what a great life. While they're getting up and going to work on a freezing cold morning, they have no idea. It's almost like Victorian.
Oh,
it's worse.
It's toxic.
Worse.
It's the most toxic environment. I can't even explain. Says it numerous. I cannot explain how toxic the prison environment is.
I've actually spoken to more than one person actually recently who's been in prison recently and quite a long time ago, and both these people said they'd rather go back to the old days when it was slopping out with a bucket.
Aye.
And one of them did
I've
that.
heard that.
And one of them did that in Strange Ways. I'd rather be in Strange Ways as it was back then
I've heard that.
than how it is right now. That's how bad it is.
I thought there's governors and stuff up here, like governors for Berlin jail and stuff like that, saying that they would go back to the days when there was heroin and stuff like that, like, because at least you knew what you were getting with that drug.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
see, the new, you've got all these new psychoactive substances coming in, and you've got all these, they're actually destroying people's psyches.
Well, I know people, the older prison, well, the older men who, they're not in prison now, but they remember back.
Aye, back in the
it was
day,
like we
aye.
could smoke cigarettes and weed, and
I know.
if we smoked weed, we were all very quiet, and it was like we just wanted to
Aye.
eat our snacks and chill out at night. But once
Aye.
that got taken away, the different forms of drugs came in,
Aye.
and they were the ones that killed people and allowed people to kill each other for them as well.
Because there is the murder rates and stuff went up down in England massively, and the suicide rates.
I've heard of one old guy in a prison being murdered over 3 vapes.
I know, it's crazy, and I think it's when you're putting people into, because you see the videos, right, and obviously like these videos that shouldn't be, but they're on YouTube and stuff like that, like, and you'll see the videos of people and it's bullying and stuff like that, and these, I don't think people understand where, I always say it, see the Justice Minister should go into a prison and serve a week in the prison.
A month,
aye.
month, yeah.
And take
I mean,
it
he
in.
can come out if he taps down. He can come out,
Aye,
but
to experience it and go.
I don't. I mean, I've listened. I used to go when I'm in the visit room. That noise is horrendous. But I've been inside some prisons, for different functions or what? Well, functions. I don't know the functions. Strange events, and the noise and the smell and everything is just horrible. But the prisoners tell me it's far worse than that in reality, and it's constant. It's like I don't think I could. I think I'd probably have to kill myself. I don't think I could cope with that.
I think there's a lot of people doing it.
I'm a person who likes quiet, and
aye.
you know, I couldn't go to sleep with another person in that room, that complete stranger, with a toilet that they're using at the side of me.
See, I know some guys that are kind of the old school guys, like that have reformed their life, and they were maybe very kind of, whatever you want to call them, like very hard prisoners to manage when they were in, and they still sometimes need to go. They've got a wee room where it's kind of like a jail cell where they need to go there and chill out, and that's where they get a bit of peace. Is sitting in there watching maybe the box sets and stuff, and just shutting themselves off to the whole of society, which shows the damage that's done then.
Well, that's kind of turned them into that, isn't it?
Of course.
Because most people, when they want to chill out, would go for a walk on a field, they put your wellies on and go for a walk on your own, maybe with a dog, and that's it, and not speak to anyone.
Aye. But, but totally isolating yourself and putting yourself in a position that was traumatising shows how much
you get comfort from that
Oh,
trauma.
aye, definitely. And it's hard to explain to people. That's hard to explain, that people get comfortable in their own trauma. It's so hard to explain that because people don't understand what you're saying.
But I suppose you'd have to. It's the only way to survive is to accept what it is that you have right now. Because if you keep fighting it and you don't like it, then you're not. It's going to make life harder, isn't it?
I don't think people understand how draining the fight is. See, like when you're fighting and you're fighting to clear your name and you're fighting to do that, and you're constantly getting rejected and refused, and it's like it's so hard to. And then you find pieces of evidence, whatever, like you find the evidence that you go, right, that's definitely going to clear me, and that'll clear. And then they fling it out as if it's nothing.
I mean, someone said to me the other day that his grandson had changed. He's I think he's done about 6 years inside. And I said, it might not be 6 actually. Less than 6. And I said, well, it kind of, there's a process. I said, I used to think that 3 years after Jordan had been in prison for 3 years, that I was, right, I'm all right with this now. I've got the, I'm strong. And then you get to 6 and you realise, oh, crikey, I was nowhere near close. There is a process of grieving and getting to a point, but you also, as a mother watching what your son goes through or your daughter, you see, the beginning's just dreadful.
I know.
The beginning where you as a mother are pretending that, hey, this is okay, I'm going to get you out.
And you don't know what you're doing.
No, and you don't know what you're doing, and you're lying. You're absolutely lying. There's nothing you can do but pretend everything's great and you're lying. But really you go to bed every night just crippled. But then you have to see them and see that, biting your nails and pretend that he's not doing it, no, everything's fine. And I'm now seeing people going through that process that I've been through and come through the other side and survived. So when people tell me now about their son or the grandson or whatever, there's been this change, I know what that is now. It's not accepting the conviction.
No.
It's accepting the situation.
Aye.
And they don't like it because they think that their loved one has given up.
I know.
It's not given up. It's coping.
It makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Even like to myself.
You've got to get through it before, you've got to live it and get to the other side before you actually understand
that.
It
makes so much sense. Like, because you get people that still say like, how do you know fight it, and you're just like, you've got no idea the dark place it takes you to, like when you're involved in that kind of fight.
But it's hot. I mean, one of the things I did with Jordan, and I think it worked. The hope came in very small pockets. It's like, right, I worked on him for like 3 to 6 months at a time, and then we get to that, and obviously nothing would materialise, and be like, right, this is it now. And it was like a new excitement for that amount of time. And that was draining. That was physically draining for me, but it was my way of stopping him from, I mean, I'll be honest, stopping him from killing himself.
Right.
Yeah.
No, anybody that lies. I mean, I know my mum will watch this and it'll hurt her when I say it, but you definitely get that thought. And if you know what, like you do get the thought of like, I can't do this anymore. Like, and I've seen some of the strongest boys who you think, some of the guys that are like jail, like, but you think they're built for the jail. They've been brought through the care system, and they just killed themselves one day.
Yeah, I think from what I hear from other people, it's really strange how some of the strong ones are the kids who've never been in trouble and they come from loving families who you'd least expect, who've got the longest sentences. And they're so brave. I can't get my head around how someone who's 18 who gets 20, 25 years and they haven't murdered anyone, how they can walk around those prisons looking after the kids who have come from care homes, who've been abused as children, who are damaged, and they're almost doing the work of the prison system themselves by looking after these young people.
No, I found I came. Obviously, I know you kind of know my mum, Jan, right? I came for a good home and stuff, and I found like I made a lot of friends who. It took me a while to realise, and I started seeing like the way they were brought up, and it was trauma, and it was all kind of through. And I didn't have that, so it took me a while to understand it. But now I'm an advocate for it. It's like I do podcasting about it. It's like we'll talk about it. We try and be straight, open, and I'll go to things, and I'll go to universities, and I'll speak at universities, and I'll be open as I can with the students and stuff, about what the effects are of these things. But I'll ask you this. I mean, what do we do? How do we change it? I mean, what do we do?
Stop building prisons.
And look more. Would you go back to grassroots?
Stop. Yeah, I mean, if you look at other countries, I mean, Norway's closing them down.
Holland, I know.
Yeah.
Which Holland had a massive problem with organised crime at one point, and they're shutting prisons down.
It's possible. It's possible. Stop. I mean, stop putting children in prison. Stop putting women, pregnant women. Women are having babies in prison.
I know. No,
There's the next generation actually physically born in there.
aye.
You know, what kind of country are we if we're still doing that? I didn't know we did that. It's only because the work that I do now that I actually know that we do that.
I know.
I didn't know we put children in prison. And I certainly didn't think we put pregnant women and let women give birth in prison.
I think it's when you start a charity up like yours, it's so eye-opening, but it also desensitizes you to a lot of stuff. So when you're speaking to maybe somebody who doesn't have a clue and is conditioned by what society thinks, it can be hard to have the conversation because they don't get what you're talking about.
They also don't. They also, if I mean, we've covered a lot of subjects just in this last hour or so. But if you sat in a pub and you're having that kind of discussion with one of your friends, I mean, obviously you know what I'm talking about. And we're both two experienced people. But if I had this kind of conversation with some of my friends, I don't think they'd ever come out drinking with me again. But they'd be like, because I know so many horrible things that they've never heard of. And it would be so distressing for them. Or I'm just a loon.
I know.
So you've got to be careful. You've got to keep hold of your personality. Because I did have a personality and I was a funny, fun person once. But I sometimes think I haven't got that anymore because I'm always talking about prisons. I'm always talking about children going to prison. I'm always talking about murder. I'm always talking about changing the law. I must be the most boring person you could ever meet. But I can't. Once it's in you, it never goes away.
It's so hard to people you try and you can leave it behind to a certain degree, but there's the level of acceptance, and I think I talk about that quite a lot with awareness. The people in prison have got such a low, they're vibrating at such a low level of awareness that when you try and speak to them about things about how you can. I mean, there's some guys, and I'm going to be open. Like, there's some guys that you would go, where does this guy fit in?
Yeah.
Where does he fit in society? Who would hire this guy? Who would hire him? And it's not the boy's fault. The boy's been through a terrible life, but all he knows is prison. But you go, where would this guy fit in?
They'd probably nowhere.
Do you know what I
Some
mean?
people don't. Yeah.
The only place they fit in is prison. They feel,
but
and this is the people that they go at holiday camps. Is because these people don't function in society well. They function in prison.
We should be
which
looking
is sad.
We should be looking after people like that.
Of course.
Yeah. And there should be something beyond prison.
And I have seen people change.
Them.
So the change is possible. I've seen people change that I've said he'll never change. In my head, I went, he'll never change. He'll be like that for the rest of his life. And he changes. And he proves me wrong.
I think sometimes if you nourish people and you give them love and you give them safety,
definitely. Humanity,
there's always
it's
going
just
to be
basic
a change.
humanity.
Yeah.
I think there was I can't remember. Have you ever, do you know Raphael Rao?
Yes. Yeah.
So I've always, if Raphael Rowe's ever watching this, I'd love to do a podcast with him, by the way. But
I've done one with him.
Have you? Right, that's it. You're sorting it for me. You're sorting it. I'm getting on you for it. I really like Raphael Rowe.
No, he's good. He's good.
But I remember I watched a documentary he done, and he was going to like different prisons, and it was all different all over the world.
I can't watch those.
And he went to the one in Norway, and he says, like, when he came up, he got off the bus, they were like, just treated him like a human, and he says that he was disarmed.
Yeah, didn't expect
away.
it.
Like, he was really disarmed straight away because he'd been to these mad Russian ones where they were like tying him up and just treat you like an animal.
Yeah.
But when he went, so he left that in the last episode, and he went, and it was like when he went to Norway, and it was like he was disarmed, and I was like, it was such an amazing way to end this crazy.
Because you watch all that other stuff, and then you get to that one, you think, oh, actually, that
looks as if that worked a wee bit. Do you know what I mean? That's. I mean, listen, you're going to.
I mean, when I talk about prison abolition, then it's something like that. Not like. No.
Like rehabilitating people and actually
school for naughty boys.
Definitely. Well, look at it.
Just give it a different name and give it a different context, and put some. I mean, it sounds a bit hippie, but put some love in there.
I know.
If you give something love and attention, if you water a plant, it grows.
I know. I think it's just people have got so conditioned to think that prison's just full of like
people who are not as good as themselves.
And see, prison is basically full of people who have usually got drug addictions. And I say it, but like most good criminals are outside. Do you know what I mean? Like the most good criminals, the clever ones in that are a bit like a step ahead or whatever. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of good criminals inside prison.
I mean, when you
I'm
talk
not saying
about
that,
drug
but I'm just
addictions
being-
as well, there's a lot of Hollywood film stars who've got massive drug addictions, but that's okay, isn't it?
I know. Aye. It's all right for them.
Or
I know.
such and such a body, multimillionaire drug addict.
Aye.
But yeah,
But then they
little
go
Johnny down
aye.
the road in the council flat, he has to
know.
go rob to feed his addiction.
But we
Oh,
were
he's
talking
scum
about
of the
like
earth,
up here.
isn't
There's only 26 beds in Glasgow for rehab, and the rest is put into harm reduction, which is kind of there's like it's shocking. I believe there is a place for harm reduction, but you're basically saying then that these people are not worth trying to rehabilitate, which isn't the case because I've seen it. Like I've seen people who I would go, you've got no chance of changing, proving me so wrong, and going and flourishing and creating charities.
Yeah.
Like going away and creating their own charity and really building something. And I'm like, wow, like I would
And
never have
doesn't
seen
that
that.
tell you that foresight doesn't exist?
I know. They are, definitely.
So you foresee that they'll never amount to anything, but then suddenly they
so
do.
my foresight's totally wrong.
So it doesn't.
Totally wrong.
So foresight is non-existent.
Definitely. Whereas that's the backbone of joint enterprise.
And that's the backbone of what is giving people life sentences. Yeah.
So what's happening?
We just went full circle then,
No, I
didn't
know, aye. So obviously, like we've got like a wee maybe 20 minutes to half like to just to go right, Jan. But what's happening with joint enterprise now? Where are you now? Where is it sitting?
I think it's gonna go. I think over the years, the judiciary has had lots of opportunities to put it right. It's always them that get it wrong. 2016, we had a case at the Supreme Court, and it was like, law had taken a wrong turn, let's put it right. I'd argue it's taken another wrong, well, I think everybody would argue it's still wrong, and it's done another wrong turn and continues to. So the judiciary has had an opportunity to rectify all the damage, put it right, never does. So we're with Parliament at the moment, so Parliament's going to have to sort it out. But if you've got a CPS, a Crown Prosecution Service, that's only ever known joint enterprise, only ever known it when it's been wrong and policy driven and racist, then it's got to be got rid of. Full stop. All of it. Abolish. We don't need it.
I mean, you say racist, you're not just talking about black people because you're obviously talking about the white people, the feral, the feral
discriminatory.
animals. It's like,
discriminatory.
Aye, so it's like it's discriminating and stigmatising like different
target group.
Targeting groups and then using a narrative that fits that.
I mean, in the 70s, it used to be the Irish as well as the blacks, didn't it? You know, it's
oh yeah,
no, it's
Birmingham
black and
6
Asian,
and
isn't
the,
it?
The Maguire 7 and the Guildford 4 and all these guys. And when you talk, I mean, I had Patrick Maguire on here last week, I think his podcast went out. And when you actually see that these people are willing to go out and just set people up as well, but this is the bad thing as well. You've got bad policemen. I'm not saying they're all bad. They're not all bad. But you've got bad policemen. You've got bad... lazy lawyers and
lazy police, lazy lawyers, lazy law.
It's dangerous, man. It's dangerous.
And we're the ones who
And then you fire a bit of corruption in there as well, when money's getting fired.
They get promoted, we get sent down.
It seems to be when the big cases happen. So when McGrahy's case happened up here, everybody involved in that got a promotion. No, they're clever people. These people, right?
Same in our case.
Was it?
The head copper in Cheshire got made head of Greater Manchester Police. So that was a nice promotion for him. The prosecutor became a judge, and the victim's wife became a baroness. So, you know, a lot of good things for some people came out of the destruction of 3 young lives. Mm-hmm. A lot of good things for some people. And
what's the baroness's view on it? She's like life means life, isn't she? She's that.
Her original viewpoint was that she'd administer the lethal injection if she could.
I remember she was on.
And I do understand that's grief and whatever, but she's become the Victims Commissioner of England and Wales, and I think you have, you got to be careful, what you say and how you deliver what. Those can't be your views. You can't have your personal views when you're in a position like that.
No, when you're running on emotion, you're going to be biased, as we spoke about earlier.
Yeah.
Like if you put me in as a justice minister,
I'd set them all free.
So,
set them all free.
So it's not going to work.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
It's
not a good
thing.
thing.
We know that, don't we? I'd be like, I'll open the door for them, set them all free. Yeah. And if there's any bad ones there, you'll have to chase them and get them back. But all the other ones, leave them. And it's a nonsense, and I know it's a nonsense, but that's why I'm not going to be prison minister, isn't it?
I know.
That's why I would never apply for that job, because I know it wouldn't work. Because I would be biased. So you're right. It's, but I've always felt that it's, when there's an injustice, I always feel that there is, because from day one or when it begins, the press are all over it for some reason. I didn't know our case was all over the newspapers, because when I first got told, it was like, today's news, tomorrow's chip shop paper. It went on and on and on.
I know.
And it's never ended.
I
17 years later, and it's never ended.
My mum was, but obviously my mum, and then I used to get a Christmas card every year off JENGbA, which was honestly amazing. Like, I never forgot, every single year you used to get a Christmas card. And my mum, obviously, I think my mum Fiona maybe met you at a justice conference or something like that. And obviously you kept in touch, and it was like my mum used to talk quite a lot about Jordan's case to me, and just used to say like how bad it was and stuff. And at the time, it's like I probably didn't. I was in prison when I watched the thing about joint enterprise, and in my head I thought it was just the same as Art and Part.
Yeah.
But I didn't realise how bad it actually was, how different it was.
Yeah.
It's no like Art and Part, and it's no like acting
far
concert.
Worse.
It's
far
a lot worse and a lot further reaching.
Yeah, far worse. It's like a cancer. It's really bad. I've spoken to people who go into prisons, different prisons, and they've said, the Longford Trust, who gave us the Longford Prize a couple of years ago, because they go into prisons with education, and they've been into prisons all over the country. They noted that every landing, every prison, joint enterprise, that's what they all are. So I think when I say 10,000, I'm saying 10,000 convicted of murder or manslaughter. He didn't commit those crimes, but
it's crazy numbers, isn't it?
But I think if you look at other crimes like burglaries or whatever, street fighting, violent disorder, there'll be lesser crimes. There'll be people in there for lesser crimes who didn't commit those either.
I know, boys. Jan, I've been in with guys who like have maybe been done with, like, just say they've been done with a burglary, right, or like robbing a farm foods, and then they want to kind of close up cases or whatever. They'll say, listen, plead guilty to this, and we're going to fire in a couple of these robberies for running about as well to get them shut, and we'll give you a lower sentence. And they'll take it, obviously, they'll take the deal because they're getting a low.
We're in such a state with our prisons. I think if you got arrested today, you've got, I think it's something like 21 months before you set foot in a courtroom. So if you take a guilty plea, an early guilty plea, they give you a lesser sentence. What if you've not done it?
Is that remand?
But what if you've not done it?
Is that remand 21 months before you hit trial?
Before you get, if not more, because not only are our prisons absolutely busting at the seams, there's no room in the court. So it takes years before your case gets to court. And then when you do get let out, probation services can't handle you because there's probation officers with like 50 cases at a time. Okay. So they want to throw you back in jail, but then you can't go back in jail because there's too many people in jail.
It's wild, isn't it?
And people can't get the parole hearings because there's no judges to do it. It's right now the absolute shambles that the system's in is unbelievable. And to some extent, I feel quite smug about it because it's been coming for 20 years at least.
And you've been warning them as well.
And I've been warning them for almost 20 years, and they haven't taken any notice of us. And they're still not acknowledging that it's joint enterprise that's done this and wrongful convictions that have done this. And they're scared of saying we've got to let these people out of prison because the public will say, but they're murderers.
Mm-hmm. I know.
But they're not murderers. So what they need to do, what the government needs to do is acknowledge.
Educate.
They need to acknowledge that joint enterprise has been guilty of putting innocent people in prison for huge sentences for too long, and that those people who are in prison need to be released.
Aye.
They need to be released. And, you know, they're not dangerous. They didn't kill anyone.
Mm-hmm.
And they need to be released as soon as possible. And that would free up so much of the prison system. Yeah. And then they could start educating people and rehabilitating people.
No, definitely. I think it leaves room for because we do need to educate the public, because it's, you'll know yourself, Jan, that you'll get phone calls that for people that have not got a clue what's happening, and you just go, that was me 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And this poor woman doesn't know where to go, and the only person that's going to help, but that must put some amount of strain on you because you're that person. I mean, it's great to help and be there, but
sometimes you can't because you tell them what they have to do and they need to do it and they don't know what you're talking about.
And they don't want to do it. They don't want to listen.
And then they'll write it down and then they'll ring you back a week later and go, what was that thing that you said they had to get?
I know.
And it's changed as well because I tell them to get the judges summing up.
Mm-hmm.
and the sentencing remarks and the route to verdict, because they're the most important thing that you get after a trial. Because it's shit.
It's all right.
It's all in there. Sorry for swearing. It's all in there. The route to verdict, the summing up, the sentencing remarks. Because some of the judges will say, "I know you didn't commit the murder."
Mental.
I don't know what evidence, there is that can say that you committed the murder. However, the law says I must give you a life sentence, 23 years.
No,
so
isn't it? So the judge is actually knowing.
If you've got that in your sentencing remarks and you've just done 10 years in prison and you've got your judges, summing up as well and the route to verdict, you just put that down and go, there you go, that shows I didn't murder anyone. I'm all right to be set free, aren't I? So over the years, that's been something that we've been telling families to get hold of and to collect. Some of them, you can see the racism just running through it. Some of them, where women are concerned, the way that some of the women are spoken about, even by female judges.
So is there a lot of girls in me?
Yeah, they're derogatory. Yeah, feckless mothers. They talk about the women worse than the man that's done the murder. It's dreadful. It's dreadful. No. And it's just it's words. People are getting convicted on words, not evidence. Yeah. But if you get that stuff and you get that's your main thing.
That's the kind of stuff you need. So as we kind of coming up to the end, Jan, what would you kind of say for anybody that's maybe watching this, that is going through this kind of joint enterprise, or anybody that's just kind of interested in crime that's watching this that maybe doesn't know anything about joint enterprise? What would you kind of what would you just like to say?
No, first of all, if you haven't gone to trial yet, contact us first, because it's no good once that guilty verdict's come through. Because it's much harder to help you once you've got that guilty verdict, because people don't go to the Court of Appeal. There's no room and there's no leeway in the law at the moment. But if you have been convicted, contact us and we'll send information packs in to your loved ones. And if you're just an ordinary person who's really concerned, at the moment there's a Westminster Commission and you can submit to it. What do you think should happen to the law? You've got till the 1st of May to submit 2 sides of A4. Do you think the law is right? And do you want to?
How do you get to that, Jan?
If you look at our website, which is www.JENGbA.co.uk, there'll be information there as to who to write to.
Right. So I would, for all my kind of viewers, I would kind of hope, and I would ask Andy to kind of maybe try and have a look at that for Jan. Anybody that kind of watches this and kind of sides is kind of sides with the people that we're talking about, do you know what I mean? Have a look. And which is also coming up for JENGbA. I know you've got a podcast and stuff coming up.
Yeah,
soon.
we've got a podcast series coming out, I think in the middle 23rd, 24th of April. So that's going to be good.
That will
4
be good,
series, all in it together. That's what it's called. So
all in it together.
all in it together. It gives you the history. It gives you families. Speaking on that, lawyers, academics, even a couple of MPs. So it gives you the whole story, and I think it's going to be quite groundbreaking as well.
So you've got, there is quite JENGbA, it's got quite a good following. There's a lot of them, and there's actors and stuff spoke out, and there's a lot of people, do you know what I mean? So I think you need to be very proud of what you've built, Jan.
Yeah.
Very, very proud.
One of the prisoners, there is a prisoner who keeps ringing me up and he says, what does he, you're a big fish, you're like a rock star in here. And I think, oh God, you think so, you saw me. But they've got that, that's because people like me and Gloria and the rest of the team, we're the people that give them a little bit of hope.
Of course.
You know, so we are.
Aye.
Yeah. Which sounds really weird.
No,
but
it's
yeah.
But it's people like yourself that you come and experience that bit of humanity, and then you start believing in yourself again a wee bit. So just as we're kind of finishing up, I'll just give you the kind of last message, Jan. I always just kind of give the viewer the last message, just to anybody that's watching, maybe struggling, any kind of like you get people watching like a lot of the time, and they've got struggles in life. What would you say? Because you've been through a lot of struggles yourself.
Hope. There's always someone, isn't there, to help you? And if it's a crime and punishment issue, you know, there are good people out there who care about you, regardless. Yeah, definitely.
No, listen, Jan, it's been absolutely brilliant having you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Excellent, brilliant. Cheers.
Thanks for having me.